Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this game's worth their time and bandwidth. Today's game is Alan Wake Remastered. Remedy's first big game post Max Payne is back. Has Alan Wake aged well, or is it just pulp? Let's find out. Alan Wake Remastered is a re-release of the 2010 Xbox 360 exclusive, which is now a core part of the Remedyverse, so it's good that they brought it back for modern systems, complete with its DLC. The story follows Alan Wake, a schlock horror author who is more James Patterson than Stephen King, who goes to the northeast town of Bright Falls with his wife to relax and get over writer's block. However, after some weird encounters, his wife goes missing, and the town at night is consumed by darkness that possesses the residents. Not to mention, Alan keeps finding pages of a manuscript he didn't remember writing, describing what he's doing in perfect detail. How mysterious. So it's up to Alan to wander around the woods, shooting the entire population of the town to death while narrating to himself the whole time. Let's say I have mixed feelings on the story, enough for an entire other video, but suffice to say, while it's janky, cliched, and rips a lot off from Twin Peaks, it ends up being engaging throughout to pull you through to the end, and even has quite a few interesting questions about the creative process and authorial intent. The gameplay loop itself is very simple. During the day segments, you'll walk around the town in a linear fashion while the story progresses, and at night you get dumped in the woods to explore and kill. Each day is an episode, and in between all of your gear gets taken from you for some reason, so you'll need to regather your handgun, a swappable secondary weapon, as well as some grenades, flares, and your handy flashlight each time. See, enemies are coated in literal darkness, which in order to damage them, you'll need to burn it off with light. Most of the time, this is from your flashlight, which like all flashlights, you can supercharge to blast your foes with some industrial grade LEDs, even though that'll drain the batteries quick and they'll need to be replaced. You can also use light in the world as well as flare guns or road flares to serve as impromptu enemy damagers. There unfortunately isn't a ton of enemy variety, really just 3 core ones: regular lumberjack guys that are melee or ranged, big lumberjack guys with more health, and possessed objects that'll fly around at Alan but only need light to kill. The game does mix up its encounters, some of the more memorable ones being one where an ally has a weapon and you only have a light and have to tag for him, as well as a pyrotechnic fueled rock show. There's also a few driving segments left behind from when this game was originally open world, and they aren't particularly great, but they do give a sense of scale. And honestly, that's the bulk of Alan Wake Remastered, with the remastered version only really adding in the DLC, as well as 60 FPS and better graphics. So what do I like about Alan Wake Remastered? Well, the game just drips atmosphere. The foggy forests of Northeast America, blended with howling wind and penetrating darkness, are gorgeous and memorable, and make just walking around evocative. Additionally, the concept around using a flashlight to burn shields off enemies is great, adding to the frantic nature of combat, and adding some great visual contrast between light and dark. And lastly, this world is just brimming with detail, even if it apes most of it from Twin Peaks, with the town feeling alive and real, and character interactions really engaging. Also, the music slaps. When it comes to the bad, the repetition of combat takes a good idea, the darkness shield, and drags it out ad nauseum to the point of tedium. And this is exacerbated by the game only really having 3 enemies, as mentioned, over its whole duration. There's unfortunately much more combat than story in this game. Speaking of that story, while its mystery and themes are interesting, the story itself and its characters around it feel pretty half-baked, with characters like the psychologist or FBI agent made it to be important but having very small screen time, and Alan himself being very unlikable through most of the experience. I did speculate that maybe is the point, since Alan is shown to be a bad author and kind of a bad husband. Either way, I don't love it. And lastly, the controls, particularly any of the platforming, feel very floaty and unresponsive. You do kind of get used to it, but it makes controlling Alan not feel as tight as it should be, and the less we say about the jumping and platforming, the better. As you know, our games here on a 3-point scale: must play, maybe consider, and don't bother. And coming back to Alan Wake after I first played it 13 years ago, I found that it's an intriguing game that struggles to maintain its high level of quality across all of its facets. The acting and atmosphere are phenomenal, and its darkness-based combat ideas are interesting, but it falls into repetition and half-baked story contrivances more often than you'd think. Knowing this game had a troubled development definitely explains a lot of its flaws, but despite all that, I do like Alan Wake. So if you are interested in an atmospheric Twin Peaks game and already played Deadly Premonition, Alan Wake is still worth checking out, flaws aside. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Have you played Alan Wake? Are you a huge Alan Wake fan? I personally know lots of people that love this game, and quite a few that absolutely hate it. So I want to know what you think in the comments, but regardless, go out there and give Alan Wake Remastered a look.